Comrade Kamala's going to try to shy away from Sleepy Joe in the debate tonight. But she just got caught copy-pasting his policies. 7 weeks after Harris was crowned the Dem nominee, she finally put policies on her campaign website. But the New Republic is highlighting how much of the language was lifted from Joe Biden's campaign website, including material that literally calls for people to re-elect Joe Biden. Some Democrats are getting tired of Kamala's hesitance to throw her boss under the bus. New York Magazine bluntly says, quote, Kamala Harris should cut Joe loose. But the big guy says he'll be watching tonight.
I'm going up to my granddaughter's birthday in New York. Then we're going to watch a debate. And then tomorrow I'm doing 9/11. I spoke to the vice president. She seems calm, cool, and collected. I think she's going to do great. And I'm not going to tell you what advice I gave her.
All right, Greg.
Yes.
She cannot campaign on policies to, like, fix the border or to fight inflation or any of these other issues without tying herself to Joe Biden and what she's done for the past 3.5 years. So does she throw him under the bus?
Well, first of all, it's good to see he's going to his granddaughter's birthday. We know which granddaughter it isn't. I think this is verging on pathological. Like, she's treating the campaign for becoming leader of the free world the way I treated a final in college for a class that I never went to. You know, she doesn't do the work. She hasn't done the work. She's had 7 weeks. And then she copies the homework off someone else, right? Makes no sense. If you could buy Cliff Notes for becoming president, she would buy it and still not read it.
Yeah.
I think the key word here, and I think it's anxiety. I think it's reflected in her continuous indecision. When you look at you talk about immigration, being the border czar, nothing came of that. Almost everything she's done, nothing happens. And I do think that she's incapable of making decisions, which is a huge mistake, a huge problem when you're electing a president as somebody who can't make up their mind. Mm-hmm. I think that's why there's no there, and they've had to replace decisions with vibe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and, you know, that's really my next question, Dana. She's had nearly 2 months, you know, to prove to the American people, show the voters who she really is. And instead, she chose to hide, and she chose to promote vibes instead of staking out positions. And yet she calls Donald Trump an unserious candidate.
Yeah, it's interesting because she is the vice president of the United States. She is the second in line to lead the country if something happens. So you would have thought that she would have a little bit more, especially since the decline of Joe Biden was very obvious, especially to her. She apparently had lunch with him every Wednesday. And you wonder if that will come up tonight. One of the things polling shows is that most people believe that she did know that there was a serious mental decline, but they weren't ready for that. But in the CNN interview, the one interview she did, she was not willing to really distance herself from Biden. She wasn't willing to kick him to the curb, throw him under the bus, whatever the analogy is. So I think that her team would like to see her do that. And I think that Joe Biden knows that his legacy really rests on if she wins, right? Because if she doesn't, then he'll be blamed even more than she will be. So I think that Biden might have told her today, do what you need to do. And if you need to distance yourself from me or say I did something wrong, it will be okay. That would be the gentlemanly thing to do if they really want to win.
But Trump's definitely got to hit her on the
decline.
No, on the cover-up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's got to be there.
Yeah.
And if she does lose, though, Dana, they might just blame Nancy and Barack for taking Joe and then just throwing her out there. There's going to be a huge problem.
They're going to blame Joe Biden because she should have told him not to run back in January of 2024.
And it's going to be fun to watch the Democrats blame each other.
Yes, how fun.
All right. In spite of the fact that she's revealed very little, almost half of the voters think that she is too liberal. She is liberal and she's progressive. I mean, how tough is it going to be for her to convince people tonight that she's not a liberal when it seems she's more focused on trashing Trump?
Trump has to convince people that she's a radical liberal.
It's his job.
It's his job. The comrade thing you probably won't hear. They now say dangerously weak, dangerously liberal, failed, extremist. Those are the language that you'll hear. And at the end of the night, Trump's goal is for the entire country to know her record and to force her to defend her record, because she's been lying about her past, and you can't trust people who lie about their past. She will blame everything on Biden, or she'll blame it on Trump. Afghanistan's Trump's fault. The border's Trump's fault. Inflation's Trump's fault. And everything else, well, I was just a VP. You know, I wasn't running. I was a loyal VP. And that's how she gets out of it. She doesn't represent change.
Yeah.
Because if she did, why'd she copy and paste Joe Biden's platform onto her website? She's missed status quo. Everybody will know it at the end of the night.
And the truth is that 60% of Americans want change, and that only 25% of Americans think that she represents change. Then she goes, I think, like within the last 48 hours, she literally plagiarizes from Joe Biden's campaign site, website, and it says to re-elect Joe Biden. That got included, too. He's a plagiarist, and she's plagiarizing him. How is she an agent of change?
So a couple of things. There are polls on either side of who represents change. So there are some polls that say that Donald Trump wins in that category, some polls that say that she wins in that category. You can find both, suit your fancy. I don't really know if it counts as being plagiarism to take stuff from a campaign website where you were the vice president of. And she didn't lift the entire site. I understand you want to go back to the beginning of it where it did say re-elect Joe Biden. That went up a long time ago. If you look at the policy pages, it's very clear where she picked up things that were working and that the American public like about the Biden-Harris administration. Like, they're happy with how they handled health care. They want to keep the ACA. They want to strengthen it. They want to expand Medicaid for people, things that even conservatives have been smart enough to jump on. They want to talk about protecting reproductive rights. People think that that's good, that he was doing that, a child care plan, for instance. And I took a look at Donald Trump's website, his platform. So hers, I should note, has drop downs for everything. So you click on it, and then you can read a couple paragraphs about how she would do it. And then they very smartly also talk about how Project 2025 would completely dismantle the way that they're going to approach it and what the outcome would be there if Donald Trump was able to win. But his site is as unspecific.
Project 25 is not Donald Trump.
Well, you should watch the interview with Caitlin Collins, of one of the founders of it, where he actually almost slips up and says it. Everyone at Heritage is laughing at the fact that Donald Trump is trying to pawn this off as if he's not related to it. But you go on his site and you look at his he denies everything, Judge. We've talked about this. He says, seal the border and stop migrant invasion. No detail, no drop down. How are you going to do that? This might be my favorite. Unite our country by bringing it to new and record levels of success. Well, that sounds nice. What does that mean? We know he doesn't have a plan for lowering inflation except to ask all the heads of the agencies to come together and do it. He thinks tariffs pay for childcare. He thinks tariffs pay for everything. So when you're going to ding her repeatedly for being unserious and lacking in detail, take a look at their actual platforms and see who the person who has detail is and who the person is that is completely lacking in specificity and seriousness.
I just think bringing up Project 2025 is kind of weak. I mean, it's basically a policy stack by a think tank, which has people that might have worked here and might have worked there. There are people that worked at Fox who work at CNN. Everybody acts as though this is somehow, oh my God, do you honestly think Trump knew what Project 2025 was? Do you honestly believe? Nobody knew what that was.
J.D. Vance wrote the foreword to the book of one of the founders of that project.
So what? What does that mean?
Well, when you say this is fantastic, what a great model for the future. Donald Trump is on tape, actually, from 2022, I think it is, talking about what a great vision it is.
But when you say, how is Donald Trump going to prove this or that, he did prove it. Gas was $2. No, gas was $2 when he was president. Really? Inflation was low. Every metric was up. You're saying that,
as a country by bringing it to new and record levels of success.
Thanks.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.